Good evening. I'm Carolyn Trimble of the League of Women Voters of Champaign County. On behalf of the League of Women Voters and the NAACP, I welcome you to tonight's candidate forum. This forum is for the general election on November 5th for the office of Champaign County Coroner. The forum will be available on vote.champaign.org, which is the League's candidate guide, and also on the League's YouTube channel, links for both of which can be found on the League's website, lwvchampaigncounty.org. I will be the moderator for this forum. Michelle Cooper is our timekeeper. League members are circulating with index cards on which you can write a question for the candidates. Please put what office the question is for at the top. We sort the questions for duplicates, so your question may not be asked exactly in the form you submitted it. The order for candidates is Lori Bauer first and Steve Thuney second. Lori will open and Steve will close. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement. I will then ask questions, and candidates will each have 1 minute to answer these questions. At the end, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Candidates will kindly refrain from any negative attacks on the other candidate, will not mention the other candidate by name, and will speak only to what they shall do if elected to office. Shall we begin? So Lori Brower will begin.
Thank you for the opportunity to share my vision for how the coroner's office should operate to provide the best service to families in a challenging time of their lives. My career path has prepared me for this position. I've not only been a deputy coroner for almost the past 14 years, but I'm also the only candidate who's an experienced autopsy technician and the only certified medical legal death investigator in the office. I'm a licensed EMT and former emergency department technician. I'm also a graduate of the St. Clair County Correctional Academy and a former Champaign County correctional officer. It's this kind of deep knowledge of what we do and what the medical and law enforcement agencies need from us that makes me the stronger candidate for the Champaign County coroner. The coroner's office currently is severely hampered by out-of-date technology. We still do some things on paper, and some of the equipment that we use for transporting the decedents is backbreakingly out of date. These are all issues that have not been addressed over the past year, and I plan to make correcting these problems a top priority. The office requires more than just experience in new technology. It also requires empathy, something that's sorely lacking right now. We deal with the public during the worst crisis of their lives. Empathy should be an absolute requirement. I believe I'm the best candidate to bring empathy to the office and a public service focus. To achieve this vision, I'll build and develop a team of professionals who share my passion for a customer-focused office. I'll work to get the technological upgrades needed for a 21st century. We will exceed the expectations that first responders, citizens, healthcare organizations, and funeral service providers need from us. Being coroner is personal for me. I'm from Tolono, and I've raised my family in Urbana. When the worst thing in life happens to a family, I want that family and the decedent to be treated with the dignity and respect that I would like for my own family. And that's what I'll bring to the office of coroner.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori. And Steve?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum this evening and everybody who's in attendance and watching on TV. My name is Steve Thuney. I've been with the coroner's office for 14 years. Since January, I've been serving as the coroner for Champaign County. I bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to the position, having been in the office for the 14 years. I also have a long track record of public service. I've been in the volunteer fire service for 37 years. I currently serve as a fire chief at the Edgecott Fire Protection District. I've investigated or supervised the investigation of over 5,000 death investigations. I have over 600 hours of training in death investigation, and I think all this makes me a great candidate to continue to be the coroner in Champaign County. There are issues that we need to address as we move forward, as with any organization, as they evolve and new things come out, you want to move towards those things. We're currently looking at some new technology and some things that will make the job easier for the deputies, and I hope to bring those things forward. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both. The first question, and I'm going to start with Lori. How would you describe the duties of the county coroner?
The duties are to investigate any sudden and unexpected death. We work with families to help bring closure to them, work with law enforcement agencies and healthcare providers, do the investigations. We can do different things, autopsies, toxicology.
All right. Steve, how would you describe the duties of the county coroner?
So the coroner is a countywide elected official. The main job of the coroner is to determine the cause and manner of death of people who die within Champaign County. We typically look at deaths that are sudden, violent, or of undetermined circumstances. We employ various things to do that, such as autopsies, we run toxicology studies, and we spend a lot of time at scenes talking with families and reading medical records. All of this is to provide the family with answers as to why their loved one passed away. I think we do it very well right now. I think the office is very compassionate and empathetic with the decedent's family, and I think we can continue that going forward.
Okay, and Steve, I'm going to, in the interest of alternating, I'm going to let you go first on the next question, which is, it's going to be your job to make sure it's not redundant. Please describe your qualifications for being county coroner.
Sure. As I stated earlier, I've been in the office for 14 years. I've been doing the job of coroner since January. I have 600 hours, roughly, of death investigation training. I have supervised and or conducted over 5,000 death investigations. I have a long history of developing strong teams that can produce good results, and I think that makes me the best candidate.
Okay, and Lori?
I've been in public service for about 40 years. I'm currently a licensed EMT. I am a licensed medical legal death investigator. I have worked in the Sheriff's Department and the Corrections, and I led the EMS teams on the U of I campus. And I've been proficient in autopsies in the office and have been a death investigator for almost 4 years.
Okay, Lori, you'll get the next question. Please explain the need for a forensic pathologist and what your plans are for addressing this need.
There's a need to have one in the office. We're currently traveling 90 miles or 90 minutes, an hour and a half to Springfield for our autopsies. With my background in healthcare, I've put out a few feelers, and I do have someone that is very interested in coming to work for Champaign County, just not under the current administration.
Okay. Steve, please explain the need for a forensic pathologist and what your plans are for addressing the need.
Thank you. We do need a forensic pathologist in Champaign County, and we have looked diligently for one. There is a very low amount of forensic pathologists nationwide, just a little over 500. The latest information from NAME, which is the National Association of Medical Examiners, says the United States needs 1,800 to effectively give everybody a forensic pathologist that needs one. Our search with our search firm resulted in 12 interviews. We actually brought one to town. Ultimately, she opted to stay in Denver. So the search will continue. It's tough to bring somebody into a community who they know that there's a shortage, so they have demands that sometimes you just can't meet.
Okay. And Steve, next question for you. How would you address the training and staffing needs of your office, including deputies and other office staff?
So training is near and dear to my heart. This year, we have already increased the training. The deputies have received over 20 hours of training in various aspects of death investigation. My chief deputy actually traveled to Atlanta on a grant for a 4-day death investigation seminar. So I think training is near and dear to what we need to do. We'll keep that up, and we'll move forward.
Okay, Laurie?
So I would make sure that the training is specific to death investigations and not law enforcement or any other agency. I'm a licensed EMS instructor. I'm very versed in training people. I would like to see the investigators pick and choose what training they would like to do. If they're interested in a subject, they can do that. Then once people to go and do training, we would bring that back to the office and make changes. If they went to a training where there are things that come out, new ways to do something, then we would implement that.
Okay. And Laurie, again, what do you think fiscal responsibility looks like for the coroner's office?
I think being fiscally responsible is being accountable, open, and transparent with the funds that are provided from the county board to the office and used in the best possible way that would help the staff or the entire office and not just the needs of one person.
Okay. Steve, what do you think fiscal responsibility looks like for the coroner's office?
Well, I think to be fiscally responsible, you need to be deliberate in what you do. You need to be able to look at cases and determine whether or not you need to do an autopsy. You need to be able to look at a situation and determine what needs to be done. You need to live within your budget and understand the budget process and how that's going to work. I've invited anybody who wants to come to the coroner's office can come and take a tour, and we'll talk about those issues. But currently, I think the office is well funded by the county. So I hope to be able to maybe get some additional staff maybe next year.
Okay. And Steve, please share an example of your work with family members that would help us understand how you would approach these situations as county coroner.
Wow, after 14 years, there's a lot of those stories. I think that going to a death scene is about helping the family deal with the very bad day they're having. I've sat with families and just simply held their hand and listened to them tell me stories about their loved one who passed on. I've tried to counsel them on what the next steps will be, what an autopsy looks like, if we need to do one. And I think it's just a matter of being open and communicating with them and being there to support them. It's a difficult day for that family, and I don't want to make that any harder for them.
Okay, Laurie?
Working with the families is one of the things that I'm passionate about with this job. That is what we do this for. It's helping them through a bad day. It's helping them understand what happened, maybe help them decide why it happened. I can sit with families. The cry of mothers is something that you'll never forget. I felt like, and I do feel like that I'm very good with the families. Our previous secretary used to ask me to speak with other investigators' families because they weren't getting the information that they needed or the closure that they needed. I've always been very passionate about working with our families.
Okay. And Laurie, for the next question, there have been complaints that the coroner's office is taking too long to fulfill FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act. How would you address this?
The way that they're handled in the office is if it's from a law enforcement agency specific about our case, we handle those ourselves. Mine have never been late. I've always had mine out on time. I'm a very organized person, and I keep my information so that when I complete a case, I can send the FOIA request. The FOIA officer in the office is the one responsible for all the others, the families, the insurance companies. I don't know why they're late. I can't answer that other than they don't seem to be a priority to the FOIA officer.
Okay, Steve?
So unfortunately with the coroner's office, as with the police departments, if somebody FOIAs something the day after someone passes away, the report is not going to be ready yet. Autopsy reports take 30 to 45 days to get back. It can take up to 8 weeks to get toxicology reports back. And I know that's frustrating for families, but there's not much I can do to correct that. FOIA requests are dealt with in accordance with Illinois law.
Okay. Next question, Steve. Do you believe that additional funding is necessary for deputy training? Where would you get that money? Reallocation from other funds or some other way? What specific training needs do you think there are?
So I think there is money available for training, and I've spent money for training in the last 9 months. There is no training line item currently in the budget, so that money is moved around so we can pay for training. I think any training is good when it comes to death investigation. I would eventually like to move towards everyone being nationally certified through the American Board of Medical Legal Death Investigators, but that is a costly process, and it is costly to keep that certification. Until the budget can support that, we'll do the best we can with taking various death investigation topics and presenting those as we can.
Okay, Lori?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes. Do you believe that additional funding is necessary for deputy training? Where would you get that money? Reallocation from other funds or some other way? What specific training needs do you think there are?
I definitely think that we need training as a healthcare provider. I believe in continuing education, learning and relearning, learning it again. There's actually a part of our contract, because we're AFSCME employees, that states that the county will provide funding for training if you do some kind of training that is with your to help your job performance. They'll even give you the time off for it. We've never utilized that.
Okay. And Lori, the next question. What will you do to improve the current relationship between the coroner's office and the local law enforcement offices?
There's a very strained relationship. I would meet with them all one-on-one, not just the command staff, but the patrol staff as well, and work diligently towards mending those relationships.
Okay. Steve?
Well, I disagree with the premise of the question. We have a very good relationship with law enforcement locally. I meet with the command staff from the investigations divisions from all the departments in the area monthly at their detectives meeting. I just did so last month, and matter of fact, several of the police officers attended a Gift of Hope meet and greet meeting today, where I presented how to collaborate between law enforcement, fire, and EMS to make organ donation possible. So I'm not sure I agree with the premise of the question.
Okay. So the next question is similar, but it's a little different. What will you do to improve the current relationships between the coroner's office and the local fire departments?
Again, I'm not sure there's an issue there. We work well with all the rural fire departments. The city departments are great to work with. They have their own policies about what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. But I'm not aware of any big issues with the fire departments. Being a firefighter myself, I can tell you that firemen want to help. That's what we're here to do. So again, the premise of the question I don't think is correct.
Okay, Lori?
So we do have fire department and a police department that won't help us do any kind of removals. Those relationships need to be mended. We need to draw on them for their expertise on different ways to remove decedents that we need help with. So again, I will meet with the command staffs and the actual firefighters and mend those relationships.
Okay. And Laurie, next question for you. What do you plan to do to add diversity to the staff?
So I would encourage people in the community to come and apply. I've already spoken with several different organizations in the area who have let me know exactly how to go out in their communities and encourage people to come in and apply for these positions so that we can have a diverse office.
Okay, Steve?
So I think it's absolutely essential that you recruit employees from the community that they serve. However, I can tell you from the last employee vacancy we had to fill, there were no minority applicants, which is disappointing. And I wish we could find a way to definitely fix that. So, I mean, outreach is going to be important for that. But if they don't want to apply or don't want to do the job, this job is not for everybody. So, you know, maybe there's not a lot of people who want to do it. But certainly I would encourage anyone who is interested in working in the coroner's office, regardless of sex, race, whatever, that you need to apply. Come in and talk to us.
Okay. And this question again for you.
Okay.
Steve, what do you plan to do to improve morale in the coroner's office?
Well, again, I disagree with the premise of the question. I think the morale in the office is very good. You know, everybody has a tough day. And, you know, I have them, everybody in the audience has them, and you can't judge the morale of the office by somebody who has a bad day. I think overall the office has a very positive outlook on its job. It is a tough job, and it's very easy to have a day where, you know, it's just not a good day. But I don't think that affects the morale. I think the office is very positive in their attitude towards the work, and I'm very proud of that.
Okay. Laurie, what do you plan to do to improve morale in the coroner's office?
One of the first things that I plan to do is get some written policies and procedures in the office. The way things are done now is inconsistent and unfair. The morale in the office is pretty low. We do not help each other in the office at all unless asked. There's a lot of room for improvement, letting the staff know that they're heard and encourage them to excel where they have interests in the office so that they can be a part of the team.
Okay. And Laurie, again, do the coroner and deputies carry firearms? If so, what firearms training is required and how often is it implemented?
They do. There's a 40-hour firearms class. I believe there's no additional training after the 40 hours. That is definitely the one written policy I know about in the office that I refuse to sign. I will not carry a weapon in the office under those policies. We have people there's no background checks that are done. There's no psychological exams that are done. There's no health assessments that's done. We have deputies we have staff that have accidentally discharged their weapon in their home that resulted in the death of a pet. We have deputies in the office that have left their gun in the bathroom and left the building. We have a deputy in the office that withdrew his weapon from his holster in the office. Needs to be additional training, and people need to be checked.
Okay. Steve?
So if you want to carry a firearm, you go through a 40-hour mandatory firearms class. You recertify with your weapon twice a year. We have a very strong policy about carrying a firearm and the use of a firearm. Some of the things I just heard, I don't know anything about, haven't been informed of. If I had, we would have taken immediate corrective action. Frankly, I'm shocked to hear those things, and if somebody was aware of a misuse of a firearm, that should have been brought forward immediately. And I'm discouraged by the fact that it wasn't, because we have very strict policies on firearms.
Okay. And Steve, again for you, what is the current mass casualty plan? And then it has 3 parts to it. A, who was consulted in its creation, B, which field experts have signed off on it, and C, how often does the staff train for its occurrence? Again, this is a mass casualty plan.
Okay, well, I take those in parts. Could you give me the first part of that again?
Who was consulted in its creation? That's the first part. Then what field experts have signed off on it? And C, how often does the staff train for its occurrence?
So the current mass casualty plan was created by the former coroner. I have reviewed it. I don't know that it needs to be signed off on any other authority. Coroner Northrup was very well educated in how to handle a mass casualty event. We have not trained yet this year on mass casualty stuff, and we will, not probably this year because we're going to run out of time with weather, but it is in the plan to do so. We've had a lot of staff turnover, so we do need to run through those policies again and how to handle those. Matter of fact, I'm going to attend a training class in Danville next month on mass casualties.
Okay, and then what field experts have signed off on it, and how often does the staff train?
So I don't know what you mean by field experts signing off on it. The coroner would sign off on the program. That's the job of the coroner. And as far as training, I think, again, we haven't had a lot of time to train on that. We've had a lot of new staff turnover, but that is in the queue to be done.
Okay, Laurie?
To my knowledge, there is no mass casualty plan. I've never seen one. It has never been gone over with me or any other staff member in the office. We attended to watch one mass casualty incident, but we're not participating in it. In the almost 4 years I've been there, I've never seen a plan. It's never been gone over with me.
Okay. So I have one other question. Let's see, so Lori, start with you. Please elaborate more specifically on what changes you plan to work on for the office if elected. Details, please.
I'm sorry, can you read it one more time?
Please elaborate more specifically about what changes you plan to work on for the office if elected. Details, please.
So the first one would be to have written policies, written procedures, so the staff know what the expectation is. That does not exist right now. People don't know when property comes in and it's an autopsy. Who does the property? Does the property get done? Nobody knows. It just sits around until somebody finally deals with it. So written policies and procedures are imperative to have an office that's well run. I had already talked about including the staff in their training. What training do they want to do? What training would they like to see done? And let them participate in making changes in the office. Listen to them, hear them, and work on including them.
Okay. Steve, do you want me to read the question again?
Could you please, one more time?
Sure. Please elaborate more specifically on what changes you plan to work on for the office if elected. Details, please.
Sure. So again, policies and procedures are always an evolving situation, so we're always looking at that. I encourage the staff and have received many suggestions from the staff on different changes in the policy and how we do things. We've implemented several. One of the things I hope to do moving forward next year is I'd like to look at creating a citizens coroners class. Would be 6 weeks long. People could sign up and come in and learn what the coroner does, what a death investigation is. The other thing I think that is important is to continue our outreach to the community and let them know what's going on. What are the overdose deaths? What are people dying from, and what can we do to help provide healthcare providers with information they need to maybe impact that?
Okay. And this is the last question before your closing. So Steve, please tell the audience if you have completed the only nationally recognized death I think that says investigative training through ABMDI.
So I think what the person is asking is about the St. Louis Medical School 40-hour death investigation course, and I have completed that course, as well as many others in the field of death investigation. I think it's very important to continue education. Again, that course costs money, and the budget is very tight this year, and will be, what I'm told, the county board will be tight for the next couple of years. So we're doing the training that we can afford, that we can push out, as much free training as we can do, and there's a lot of that out there. So, I'm satisfied that, for what we can afford to do and what we can do, the office is doing a lot of training, and I think our staff does very well.
Okay, Lori, do you want me to read the question again?
I think I understand, and I will take my national exam in December. I have not yet taken it.
Pardon?
I have not yet taken the national exam. I'll do that in December.
Okay. So I think we have come to the time for the closing statements, and Lori, you opened, so Steve, you are first for, no, you're last for closing.
Yes.
So you're first for closing, Lori,
Okay. So
and
go.
Steve will be last.
Okay. So tonight you've heard two very different visions, mine for the future and another for the past. I want to have a professional, accountable, empathetic, and fiscally responsible office that meets the needs of the community, not one that parades around with a gun on a family's worst day. I want an office that'll make employee safety and well-being a higher priority. I'll change the schedule so that the staff doesn't flip between day and night shifts in the same week every week. I'll offer a schedule that pays the staff for all the hours that they work. And I'll treat all employees equally and not favor one gender or race over another. I value the time of our first responders, including firefighters, EMS, law enforcement, and the nurses who interact with us. I want to lessen the burden placed on them by the inefficiencies of this office. I never again want to see what happened earlier this summer when a family from out of town lost their child in a tragic accident in our county. The autopsy was performed 90 minutes away. The decedent was left in Springfield for the funeral home to pick up, but the personal items remained in our office in Urbana. The coroner left it up to the family in the funeral home to figure out how to retrieve those items. That's not service, that's not compassion, and that's definitely not leadership. I also don't want to see another situation where senior personnel put their needs above those of the team. This happened on a recent Friday when the two newest vehicles in our fleet were parked in the home driveways of the staff, meaning there weren't enough vehicles at the office for the deputy coroners to perform their work. This created overtime costs and it was inconvenient. Being coroner of Champaign County is personal for me. In your moment of crisis, I want you and your family to be treated with the dignity and respect that I would want for my family. That, plus my deep background, is what makes me the most qualified person for this position. I'm the candidate with the depth of experience and a positive network that my opponent lacks. It's the choice that you have before you.
Okay, Steve?
Thank you. Once again, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for holding this forum and for everybody who participated and submitted a question. I have the experience and the training and the professionalism to continue to lead the office. Compassion, empathy are at the foremost of what we do. It's in our mission statement. It's what we train for. I could go on well past 2 minutes telling you about the wonderful things that the deputies have done for families in their daytime or their day of great loss, from helping them do their dishes to cleaning their house to holding their hand to getting friends to come over and be with them. The amount of time that our deputies spend with families is very high, and I'm very proud of every one of them. The office, again, is going to evolve. There are going to be things that we're going to change, that we're going to do a little different. But I think that the staff is amazing. I'm proud to be the coroner with that staff, and I think I'm clearly, with my experience, the best candidate to continue to be the Champaign County coroner. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks again to the League of Women Voters of Champaign County and the NAACP for sponsoring this forum. Again, the recording can be found on votechampaign.org and on the League's YouTube channel. Links to get to both of these are on the League's website, lwvchampaigncounty.org. No spaces, no caps. Very special thanks to timer Michelle Cooper, who has kept us on schedule. And just a reminder, it is not too late to register to vote. You can register all the way up to Election Day, and you can vote that same day. Information is available on the League website and on the County Clerk's website about how to do this. Please vote. And thank you, both Lori and Steve. Thank you, and thank you to our audience and Michelle. Evening. I'm Carolyn Trimble of the League of Women Voters. On behalf of the League of Women Voters and the NAACP, I welcome you to tonight's candidate forum. This forum is for the general election on November 5th for the office of Champaign County Auditor. The forum will be available on vote.champaign.org, which is the League's candidate guide, and also on the League's YouTube channel, links for both of which can be found on the League's website, lwvchampaigncounty.org. No spaces, no caps. I will be the moderator for this forum. Michelle Cooper is our timekeeper. League members are circulating with index cards on which you can write a question for the candidates. Please put what office the question is for at the top. We sort the questions for duplicates, so your question may not be asked exactly in the form you submitted it. The order for the candidates is that George Danos begins and Alan Anderson is second on the opening, and Alan Anderson will be given the last word. So George gets the first word. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement. I will then ask questions, and candidates will each have 1 minute to answer those questions. At the end, each candidate will have, will have 2 minutes for an opening or for a closing statement. Candidates will kindly refrain from any negative attacks on the other candidate, will not mention the other candidate by name, and will speak only to what they plan to do if elected to office. Shall we begin? Mr. Danos will begin.
Thank you, sponsors, for having us both here tonight, and thank you to all who are watching at home. Good evening, Champaign constituents. I'm George Danos, your county auditor. In 2018, I became the first CPA to serve as auditor, thereby providing government with both certified credentials and democratic oversight. As a CPA, I am sworn to uphold certain standards, primarily among them objectivity, to state the financial truth, and to advocate for the taxpayer. I deemed the doubling of the public safety sales tax as unneeded, and I blew the whistle on the bad estimates and illogical arguments used to justify it. That has been resented. Tax increase advocates have slammed you with $34,000 worth of propaganda at your expense and have unleashed a very personal whispering campaign designed to make me give up and let you down. I would never do that. You are asked to give away your democratic power with an eliminate the auditor referendum that would let the board do what it wants without financial oversight. Though I will have served less than 6 years by October 24th, I will then upload my 7th annual financial report, or ACFR, that shows my ability to deliver clean audits with less than 1 year turnaround time. That way the county government can borrow and administer state and federally provided funds for social welfare. At votechampaign.org, you can find the answers to the candidates' surveys. My opponent has indicated that he can assign, or he would like to assign, accounts payable function to administration and to concentrate on what he calls just auditing. The internal audit is an integral and inseparable part of the accounts payable process. Otherwise, you're letting administration blindly rubber stamp checks, and then, I don't know, making pop inspections of departments and opening drawers. It would be an imaginative but mistaken notion of what the office in fact does. Champaign voters, I've demonstrated my skill and dedication as an accountant, as your watchdog and a publicist of financial data. I ask your vote this November to continue my good work. Thank you.
All right. And Mr. Anderson?
Good evening. I'd like to thank the women voters for hosting this event and to everyone in the audience for attending. My name is Alan Anderson. I'm a longtime resident of Champaign County, graduated from Urbana High School and the University of Illinois with a degree in finance. In this election, as George said, the voters are being asked if the auditor's position should be eliminated. Let's be clear, the question is only on the ballot due to the Champaign County Board's dissatisfaction with the performance of the current auditor. In spite of that, an independent elected auditor is much too important to be tossed aside. The Association of Certified Fraud Examiners estimates that the typical organization loses 5% of their revenue each year due to fraud. The county's general fund is approximately $40 million. 5% of that is $2 million. We must have an independent elected auditor to seek out fraud, mismanagement, and improve county efficiency if we are to avoid constant requests for tax increases. History shows us the danger of operating without an elected independent and internal auditor. In Dixon, Illinois, a population of 15,000, they were recently defrauded by the comptroller of $54 million over 20 years. It's hard to believe that an external and state auditors could not find $54 million after 20 years. Right here in Champaign-Urbana, we currently have a case where an individual is charged with defrauding the state of Illinois of millions of dollars over several state grants. Eliminating the independent elected auditor would not be a step forward. Instead, it would be 10 steps backwards. Once eliminated, the chances of getting the office back would be slim indeed. I sincerely hope voters will vote no on the question of eliminating the auditor. Thank you.
All right. And again, Mr. Anderson, please explain the duties of the elected county auditor.
Well, the duties are, right now, for years, the elected auditor has done nothing but be an accounts payable clerk. I spoke with J.J. Farney when I was researching this, and I said, okay, what do you do in this job? And I thought of an auditor as, seeking out fraud, making sure money is being spent as it's supposed to be, making sure assets are used as required. But he said, no, all we do really is pay bills. So that's what Champaign County Auditor does, is pay bills. Like George said, I would like to see it expanded, actually do audits on different departments, make sure we don't have any fraud, make sure the money's being spent as it should. In Effingham, Illinois, they recently, the watchdog group there found that there was a car from Indiana coming into Effingham every weekend. Ends up he was using county vehicles to go to Effingham to visit his girlfriend. We need to make sure that things like that are not happening and that the voters are getting the value they deserve for their taxes.
Okay, Mr. Danos?
Yes, thanks. That was a very congenial opening statement. There is a lot of commonality between me and Alan. We're both very direct about the importance of having an elected and thus and therefore independent auditor. I differ with my predecessor, JJ, that we're just accounts payable. Accounts payable is the paying of the checks, but that's where the internal audit takes place. We don't chase fraud. We prevent fraud. Every time there's a claim on the county, the staff looks to make sure that the claim is invoiced correctly, that it's mathematically correct, that it's legal with respect to statute and ordinances, and that the bid requirements, if large enough, are met. But also the auditor is the general accountant of the county. For any county that's under $275,000 population, that is the case. And we also write the annual financial report in-house, thereby saving $40,000 a year. That's something the other county auditors don't do. So that's 3 different functions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Danos, please describe your professional qualifications for the role of elected county auditor, including the types of financial software systems you have worked with.
As I mentioned in my opening statement, I'm the first CPA to serve as Champaign County Auditor. I think that's almost an irony, given the fact that the University of Illinois, for a long time, had the highest ranking master's program in accounting. And that is the program from which I graduated after I was defeated in 2012. After that, I worked for 4 years at a Big Four accounting firm. The accounting software that I've used have been different from different vendors. Oracle had one large product. Great Plains has another software that I touched upon briefly. Blackline is a reconciliation software. Now we use Tyler Munis. And I'm happy to say that I was key and instrumental in making sure we did choose that software. My office has undergone the training of all other department fiscal agents to acquire proficiency in that program.
Okay, Mr. Anderson, I'll give you the question again. Please describe your professional qualifications for the role of elected county auditor, including the types of financial software systems you have worked with.
Make sure I'm on there. So I have a degree in finance from the University of Illinois. My career, though, has been in computer programming. I wrote the first internet banking application for HSBC, a large international bank in New York. I work for NYC Corporation, which is one of the largest credit card processors in the United States. I have worked for Maxim Financial. I wrote their entire back-end software. They're a futures and bond individual investor trading firm. So I'm very familiar with financial concepts. I've written my own software when I was a programmer, so I'm, not familiar with the Munis system or whatever, but having a computer background, I'm sure I could pick it up very quickly.
Okay. And Mr. Anderson, again, Champaign County's audit has been late 3 of the last 6 years. This places the county's financial position at risk. What steps will you take to ensure the comprehensive annual financial report, CAFR, for this fiscal year will be completed by June 30th, 2025?
Yes, that's been a big problem. For one thing, when I'm elected, I will immediately begin learning. They currently have a staff of 3, 4 accountants. I will learn what they all do. I can't imagine why we are so late. It's 6 months every year it's supposed to be done. I guess they automatically get a 3-month extension without any penalty, really. But after, like you say, after October 1st, it really starts to create problems for especially RPC and their grant funding. It can affect the bond rating for the county. So it definitely needs to be done. I would make that a priority. As soon as January 1st, you start working on it. You try to hit the June deadline. The 30 days extra should be only used in emergency operations. I think it's a matter of putting your priorities in order and working on it from the get-go.
Okay. Mr. Danos, do you want me to repeat the question?
No. This year's audit will be fulfilled within the grace period before there's even a warning from any of the cognizant agencies to place us in any list that would result in a delay of grant funds. There's no single deadline because there are a lot of different agencies that impose a different date. So the June 30th one is from the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, and that needs to be updated. It is only for the cosmetic classification. It's only for the cosmetic look of the document for the most part. In other words, presentation. The fact of the clean audit, that is the controller and GATA, that comes in September 30th. It's not even September 30th yet, so obviously political opponents and opponents of the independent auditor are trying to criticize me before the buzzer goes. The fact of 3, I would say there are only 2 late audits in the last 6 years, but they were they never resulted in any penalties because we were always cognizant of the clock ticking. The reason this happens is in the modern era, there are algorithms that send out the warnings. This didn't happen in the past. You could get something stuck in the queue and no one would notice that it was 3 months late. It's a completely different era, and we're expected to be faster even though the state is not.
Okay. And again, Mr. Danos, the scope of the elected auditor's duties and role have been discussed a lot lately. Do you see a role for an elected auditor beyond financial audits and financial oversight? Please explain your response.
I think that the term of financial oversight is itself a broad one. I think I agree with the spirit of the question, though. I do think that there's a lot of room for the elected auditor to expand his or her scope beyond what used to be done, what has been done. This used to be a non-controversial position, but it was also a kind of routine. I think that we're at a crossroads, and that the expansion of government by 13%, which a second layer of the so-called public safety sales tax represents, is something where anyone who understands his own financial statements that he creates has got to step up and give the lie to mistaken interpretations of already faulty or misapplied forecasts. So I'm using the bully pulpit. I do think that that's resented by the county board, who thinks that I don't have any policy contributions to make. But I'm elected by the entire county, and I contested elections every time. That is not true of the county board. So if anything, I think I have more of a mandate to do so. It's a very great question. I'm glad it was asked.
Okay. Mr. Anderson, do you want me to repeat the question?
Please.
Okay. The scope of the elected auditor's duties and role have been discussed a lot lately. Do you see a role for an elected auditor beyond financial audits and financial oversight? Please explain your response.
Yes, as I kind of touched on in my opening statement, the county board, in their proposal to remove the auditor as an elected position, they foresee that they would create a new finance department, move the accountants from the auditor into the finance department. And that would be fine. I would fully support that if they would leave the auditor then to actually do auditing. Whether the auditor has another person to help, that's yet to be decided. I do have somewhat of a question on the number of personnel that they were putting into the finance department. They said they would move 3 of the accountants in there. I talked with the previous chief deputy auditor, and she said she was working overtime and cutting that position and only having 3 accountants. I'm not sure that that would be feasible, so.
Okay. And Mr. Anderson, what do you believe is the key difference voters would see between having an elected auditor versus having an appointed auditor?
Well, again, it gets back to the independence. If you don't have an elected auditor, then the appointed auditor would be appointed by the chief executive of the county. Right now, it's Steve Summers. I've met him a couple times. He seems like a stand-up guy. The big problem would come if later on you get a chief executive that is not straight and narrow. If he's in charge of the auditor, he could say, okay, we're going to take X amount of money out, and I'll give you 25% of it. If the in the Dixon case, that was $54 million. We must have independence so that the auditor is not dependent on their job for the person that hired them. They've got to have the freedom to go wherever the trail leads them. So that would be a terrible idea. You'd be saving money in the short run, but could be wasting money in the long run.
Okay. Mr. Danos, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, not at all. I think the effort to eliminate the elective character of the auditor is fatal to the spirit of auditing. Auditing means to give a second opinion. Auditing is to be objective and to state things without respect to desires or the pressures you get from a client, in this case, the board. You, our hosts, our kind hosts, have come out in favor of the idea of an appointed auditor because by that means you could supposedly guarantee credentials. You've got credentials right here. I dispute the characterization that you can have an appointed professional or you can have an elected politician. I'm not an elected politician. I've never sought any office except auditor, but I have served as a Big Four accountant. So in Champaign County, you get credentials by election and you get political hires by appointment. That answers the question. I did want to amplify what Alan said. Even if you save money in the short run, it would not be justified, but I actually think it'd be more expensive in the short run as well.
Okay, thank you. And your question, again, for the next question, Mr. Danos, one of the arguments used to support the position of elected county auditor is that this office can help reduce waste and fraud. What examples would you give to show how this was done in the past? How would you do the same in the future?
I will tell you that during my tenure, one thing that came to the public discussion was whether or not it is perceived as proper by the public for departments to have end-of-the-year employee recognition meals. From the tenor of the discussions, it has become out of fashion. This would never even be bruited about unless there were an elected auditor, whether it's coming from the elected auditor or someone's trying to send up the elected auditor. It becomes a matter of discussion. So that'd be one example. I think that there were more egregious examples in the past that have been solved by the continuing existence of the elected auditor, and mainly that would be the attempt to dodge the 3-bid requirement for a threshold of $5,000. If you break up an invoice into little pieces, you could say, oh, all of these are under $5,000, but really the collection has to be treated as a unitary whole and thereby subjected to the 3-bid process. So again, if you're owing your job to the executive, he may not have the guts to call that into question.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Anderson, do you want me to repeat the question?
Please.
Okay. One of the arguments used to support the position of elected county auditor is that this office can help reduce waste and fraud. What examples would you give to show how this was done in the past? How would you do the same in the future?
Okay. So yeah, at one of the recent county board meetings, J.J. Farney gave an example, again, getting back to eliminating the accounting duties, accounts payable duties of the auditor. He spoke of Winnebago County. The auditor up there does audits. He checks to make sure that the departments he audits are doing the best practices, make sure that they're following the state laws. He looks at improving the workflows, contrasts the cost of what they're doing with other counties to make sure that they're not way out of line on their money that they're spending. So yeah, there's much that could be done.
All right. And let's see, it's time for closing arguments. And so I believe you go first on closing arguments, Mr. Danos.
Okay. All right. Fellow Champaign County voters, we are at a crossroads of deciding whether we begin to, whether we become a yet higher tax locale amidst the many high tax locales in Illinois. We are at a crossroads in deciding what local government should and can deliver. We are at a crossroads of whether we accede to the faceless bureaucrats almost beyond democratic control, or to keep voter choice and sovereignty, as in the choice of auditor. We are certainly suffering in our community a regrettable race to the bottom in political and civil discourse, which is by no means limited to our last several national campaigns. I ask you to resist the pernicious call of a hate campaign and the self-important pronouncements of an irresponsible and disloyal clique that has taken over the local Democratic Party apparatus, who have sought to purge me and who desire to control rather than to grow our party. It is practically self-evident that the drive to eliminate an oversight institution coincides with the unprecedented and completely unjustified set of tax increases. Interestingly, many of their most passionate proponents are board members only recently resident in our state who may not stay here long enough to see the destruction they've wrought. Far from itemizing their wish list, the tax hikers dangle a bunch of coulds. We could do this, we could do that, hoping to give every potential recipient hope of a payout. They may well have made overlapping promises, by this point. They've certainly changed their rationales. Remember the warning about furloughs and salary reductions? Those did not occur. Take heart, even without their tax hike, county reserves will grow. My fear is that with the concentration of power, we will see the hoarding of cash that should remain in your pockets. So in a word, fellow residents of Champaign, my home of 4 decades, I ask you to vote down both the power grab and the tax grab. I also ask you to reelect me, George Danos, to continue as your auditor in 2024 and to throw back the steamroller that the county board and its captured county executive have become. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and Mr. Anderson?
Thank you. In my opening statement, I addressed the question of eliminating the office of the auditor. In the closing, I want to discuss the changes I believe we should make to the auditor's position. As far as I know, auditors in Champaign County have not audited county programs and departments. They only pay bills. To move the county forward, we need to unburden the auditor with the accounts payables and let them audit. The current auditor's website states that the auditor also performs economy and efficiency audits. What is an economy and efficiency audit? It ensures that the county departments and funded projects use best practices and workflows for maximum results with the most efficient use of resources. Quoting from the government auditing standards, government administration best serves the collective interest of the public when it is effective, efficient, economical, ethical, and equitable. Auditors help inform legislatures, oversight bodies, those charged with governance, and the public about whether public services are being provided consistent with these concepts. Government auditing can contribute to accountability and help improve government administration by identifying deficiencies and recommending enhancements to achieve effective, efficient, economical, ethical, and equitable outcomes. How many of these audits have been performed in Champaign County in the last 20 years? 0 to my knowledge. My entire career has been dedicated to improving companies' economies and efficiency. I look forward to bringing these skills to the Champaign County's Auditor's Office, and I thank you very much.
All right, thank both of you. Thanks again to the League of Women Voters of Champaign County and the NAACP for sponsoring this forum. Again, the recording can be found on votechampaign.org and on the League's YouTube channel. Links to get to both of these are on the League's website. Again, lwvchampaigncounty.org. Very special thanks to Michelle Cooper, our timer, who has kept us on schedule. And about timeliness, just a reminder, it is not too late to register to vote and to vote. You can register all the way up to Election Day and vote that day. Information is available on the League website and the County Clerk's website about how to do this. Please vote. Okay, good evening. I'm Carolyn Trimble of the League of Women Voters of Champaign County. On behalf of the League of Women Voters and the NAACP, I welcome you to tonight's candidate forum. This forum is for the general election on November 5th for the office of Champaign County Board Member, County Board District 5. The forum will be available on vote.champaign.org, which is the League's candidate guide, and also the League's YouTube channel, links for both of which can be found on the League's website, lwvchampaigncounty.org. No caps, no spaces. I will be the moderator for this forum. Michelle Cooper is our timekeeper. League members are circulating with index cards on which you can write a question for the candidates. Please put what office the question is for at the top. We sort the questions for duplicates, so your question may not be asked exactly in the form you submitted it. The order for the candidates is the first candidate to speak will be Lucas Atwood, and he will be followed by Matt Sullard. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement. I will then ask questions, and candidates will each have 1 minute to answer these questions. At the end, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Candidates will kindly refrain from any negative attack on the other candidate, will not mention the other candidate by name, and will speak only to what they plan to do if elected to office. Shall we begin? Mr. Atwood will begin.
Hello, my name is Lucas Atwood. I'm 45 years old. I grew up in Danville and moved to Champaign in 2006. Since 2006, I've lived on the west side of Champaign, which is District 5. I lived in Turnberry Ridge, I lived in Sawgrass, and now my current location in Trails of Chestnut Grove. My background is I work for Illinois Department of Corrections as a major shift supervisor, and I've been employed by Department of Corrections for the last 24 years. I've also spent 7 years in the United States Marine Corps serving in Fallujah, Iraq, and Sangin Valley, Afghanistan. What I'm running on public safety. I want the citizens of Champaign County to feel safe no matter what environment they're in. I want our children to be able to play outside without having to worry about being taken, being shot, and I want the safety of everyone. The county board right now is very underrepresented by the Republicans. I feel that my constituents in my area, I can carry their beliefs and their wants to the county board and make my district a better place to be. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Sullard?
Thank you to the League of Women Voters, Tricia, our moderator, Carolyn, timekeeper Michelle, co-sponsors the News Gazette, and NAACP Champaign County Branch for facilitating this forum and giving us the opportunity to speak directly to voters. And thank you to the voters for taking time to learn about your options before placing your vote. I'm Matt Sullard. I'm the Democratic nominee for Champaign County Board in District 5. I'm a father to 2 small children, husband to my wife Liz. I'm a volunteer actively involved in the local community. I've served on nonprofit and government boards, including the Champaign Citizen Review Subcommittee, where I served as chair. I'm an attorney and a public servant. My entire career has been in public service, including my current role at the University of Illinois. I have over 10 years' experience as an attorney at the municipal, county, and state levels. I began my career as a prosecutor, holding offenders accountable and giving grace where appropriate. I take special pride in my experience in less traditional routes through the judicial system. I served as the prosecuting attorney for a drug court program where I monitored individuals' treatment and abstinence from substances for those hoping to kick the habit and avoid jail. I also spent many years helping those suffering mental health crises get help they need through the courts, especially in moments when they couldn't recognize that need for themselves. I've served as an assistant state's attorney for Champaign County, where I advised the county departments and offices on best practices for providing consistent quality services. As a former county employee, I'm aware of the need to provide those services with consistency and through good quality employees compensated fairly for their work. I also advised county offices, including the county board, on issues facing our community and helped elected officials work through them. And I'm well suited to continue to work to tackle them. I've stayed involved and up to date on the issues facing the county, such as job loss, revenue deficiencies, and expanding clean water and internet access, and will be ready to hit the ground running on day one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, starting then with you again, Mr. Sullard. Tell us why you're running to serve on the county board.
So in the last several years, we've seen a lot of really good progress being made by the current county board to help kind of repair some of the damage that had been done perhaps in decades and years of county boards in the past. The person who currently represents this seat decided not to run again and asked me to run in her stead. I think the most important thing is to continue the progress that's being made already and to find ways to repair the fiscal deficiencies, the revenue deficiencies that we've been warned about that are coming. There are going to be some hard times coming up, which is why I think it's important that we support the public safety sales tax and get that permanent extra source of revenue. in a big way, they're kind of two roles that a county board member represents their district. The first is just that, to be the voice of their district on the board. The second is to be a county-wide officer and kind of a fiduciary for the rest of the county, particularly in regards to finance and budgeting. So that's why I'm running, to make sure we have a consistent, strong voice from District 5.
Okay, Mr. Atwood?
Question?
Oh, sorry. Tell us why you're running to serve on the county board.
Okay. So living in Champaign County since 2006, I've noticed a lot of deficiencies in the way that the county is represented. I feel that, the county board is not structured in a way that represents everyone. There's this seat decides whether the Democrats hold a supermajority in the county board or not. That will allow the Republicans to have an actual voice to continue to make change and help to represent the citizens in our district. Public safety, I've worked in Department of Corrections. I support unions because I am a union employee. As a supervisor, I was in charge of issuing discipline and being able to justify leniency when the employees did break the rules, whether it was misconduct or if it was just an accident. Integrity, I feel that there is zero integrity in our county board. I believe that it needs to be reestablished so the public can come to us and understand that we do serve them and we're not self-serving.
Okay, thank you. So the next question, what are the main responsibilities of county board members? Again, Mr. Atwood.
Well, there's a fiscal responsibility to ensure that the tax money is being used wisely, which unfortunately hasn't been audited due to auditor not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And as citizens in District 5, we should demand that the county board runs efficiently and to be the voice for my district. The qualities that I'm running on are what is expressed by my constituents. They fear for their public safety when they're downtown. They know that the police is doing a phenomenal job. The sheriff's department is doing a phenomenal job. The fire department's doing a phenomenal job, but they need more backup. They do need mental health. As a Marine and working in the prison system, I understand mental health is a huge problem, and it's something that needs to be addressed and supported. I feel that continuing to take money from our citizens is not the best thing to do. We need to get down and figure out why we need so much money by auditing our programs, and if the programs are running efficiently, then that's fine. But if they're not running efficiently, we need to take from those programs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sullard, what are the main responsibilities of county board members?
So primarily, it's a lot of setting budgets and allocating money. Of course, there's the other departments that the board oversees and guides: zoning, animal control. There are different studies that occur to kind of better inform the direction that the board might take. RPC, of course. But it's primarily setting budgets. So some of those allocations follow state requirements. Others are a little bit more discretionary, which is why it's so important to select a board member who has the values and priorities that you have. What kind of community do we want to have moving forward? Or do we want a forward-thinking community that's creative about how we're going to get more money, or how we're going to stretch that dollar further to the right allocations? Board members who are ingenuitive but can be responsible and efficient with the dollars we have. We certainly don't want to be abusing anybody's tax dollars, and we don't want to tax any more than we have to. At the same time, we're a growing community, and that means growing costs to provide quality services.
Okay, and Mr. Sullard, again, what is the biggest issue in District 5, and what would you do about it?
I can think of two real fast, and I think one is one that Mr. Atwood has spoken to, and that I have a history in myself, and that's public safety. A lot of folks do have concern about safety, particularly downtown, but really anywhere. That we know that the bus system goes all around town, and anyone can get on the bus. So public safety is always a concern, and it's kind of dovetails with the second point, which is the need to have financial security for our county for consistent good services. In the same vein of the public safety, we have to be able to financially support our public safety officers, our police, our frontline. It's important, I think, to make sure that we have the mental health capacity as well to be able to address those concerns, meet folks where they're at, get that early intervention, and try to head off some of these safety concerns. And it's also important, I think, to use the court system to keep dangerous weapons out of dangerous hands. So public safety and making sure we're financially secure for the county to provide good services, I think, are the most important items.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Atwood, do you want me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Okay, what is the biggest issue in District 5, and what would you do about it?
Well, it's definitely public safety. Everybody wants to feel safe. We want our children, we want our seniors to be safe. When homeless people aren't given a place to go, when there aren't resources to deal with the homelessness and the mental health aspects, that causes a big problem, and the sweeping it under the rug just doesn't work for me. We need to figure out a way to take care of the homelessness and ensure that when we as a community visit downtown to support our small businesses, that we're doing it safely. I feel that is one of the biggest priorities is safety. Integrity in the county board has got to turn around. A lot of people don't feel safe when they're casting their votes. I believe something just happened where a key was stolen to mailboxes. We want to push mail-in votes, mail-in ballots. Are they safe? I don't know. We need to figure out and stop the criminal activities and make sure our public safeties are supported.
Okay, thank you. And your question again, what should be done with the nursing home?
The nursing home needs to be supported. Our seniors are very, very important to me. I was partially raised by my grandparents, living close to me. We need to figure out a way to encourage nurses to come in and work by giving them good benefits, by supporting them and paying them for fair wages. Ensuring that there's a place for them to go and that there is safety and security there.
All right, Mr. Southard?
Sure. I want to address a couple of things. One, I'm glad he brought up the concern about when homeless people don't have a place to go, which is why I'm sure he'll be supporting the City of Champaign Township tax request to make sure that we can fund strides fully so they do have places to go. Regarding the nursing home, I understand that it's been sold and the company that came in to take it over is not doing well and wants to sell it for a different purpose outside of the covenants that the county board, the restrictions that were put on it, to the point that they've gone to the state about it. There's certainly a shortage of beds in the county, and I agree that we need to be able to attract the workforce, the nurses, and I agree that we need to be able to pay them quality wages and provide good working experiences. Again, that's a good thing to hear, and a great way to do that is, again, to be supporting a public safety sales tax so we can reallocate some general fund money to help attract some of those nurses and keep businesses here and stop losing jobs.
All right, and Mr. Sellard, what should be done with the Brookens building?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Would you like to?
Their county offices will be moving out of the Brookens building, so what is the future for the Brookens building?
Well, so long as it remains county property, I think it's an opportunity to, perhaps we can do some of the homeless outreach there. Perhaps we can convert it into a mental health facility. Perhaps we can convert it to some, the nursing bed shortages. I think there's plenty of opportunities as long as it's going to maintain county property. And if it doesn't make sense for it to stay county property, then it makes sense to try to sell and get the best deal we can. But as long as it is property, we need to be sure we're taking care of it and not letting it fall to disrepair. There's been plenty of facilities and properties over the last several years that have gone to disrepair and cost more to have to replace later because the maintenance wasn't being done properly for them along the way. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen, but there are huge needs for mental health intervention, nursing home beds, homeless needs, plenty of ways that we can make good use of that space.
All right, Mr. Atwood?
I concur. That would be an awesome place to turn into a mental health facility. I would love to keep it into county property. I would not be, unless, like Matt said, and unless it's just fiscally irresponsible to keep the building. There's lots of things we can do with it. I've spoken to public safety officials, and that's one of the things that was suggested was, hey, we have space out there. Why don't we put something out there for the homeless people to do? And not only that, but give them something to do out there. We, inside the prison, they just don't sit around. They have something to do to make themselves feel good about contributing to society in their way, whether it be having a garden to help them with mental health. Personally, I love to garden because it does help my mental health. And giving them something to do to where they feel great about themselves and they're not just accepting a handout, because I honestly feel that a majority of the homeless people in this area would be very good contributing members to society if given the opportunity with the correct resources.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Atwood, again for you, if elected to the county board, how do you plan to stay in touch with your constituents?
Well, I visit to, a lot of my constituents go to the same places. We go to the same church. We go to the same schools. I would implore them to contact me through email, through Facebook, any type of social media. I plan to do what Representative Schweitzer does, and he sends out an email update of everything that goes on in the state building. So I would love to do that, encourage everyone to reach out to me and utilize any resource possible. I will make myself available to anyone that wants to have a good conversation. I think one of the biggest things about being a public servant is being able to listen. Not hear, but to be able to listen. I come from a pretty good background, great parents, worked hard, and being able to listen and help the underdog is what I value myself as.
Okay, Mr. Sellard, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, thank you, I've got it. So for starters, I work at the university. I consider that to be the heart of the Champaign-Urbana area. It's a centrally located spot that I'm always happy to be able to find. Walking through the quad, talking with folks there, it's always one of my favorite things to do. Additionally, as I mentioned in my opening, I'm very involved in community ways, different boards I've been on, different groups I'm part of. I think I find myself with folks who are my neighbors more often than I ever expected I would. Part of that's the charm of a smaller town, is being able to always go somewhere and find somebody you know. I would also note, just canvassing, going door to door, is a great way to stay in touch with your community, with your district. One of the things I remember doing with Jordan Humphrey, who used to be in this district, was doing exactly that, walking through in his side of the street where he lived in CC 18, walking through and just checking in with the neighbors. Hey, I'm your district representative here. Everything going okay? Anything I can do for you? Here's what's going on with us. We'd love to have your involvement. Come talk with us at County Board.
Okay, and Mr. Sellard, what is your position on the proposed county retailers' occupation tax for public safety?
Yeah, I think I've made my position clear on that so far, but the public safety sales tax is a great way to raise additional funds we need right now, so we're not relying on money that doesn't exist, that we've gotten from one-time allocations, sales that aren't going to be recurring and always there. The public safety sales tax doesn't apply to some essentials like groceries and prescriptions, so those sort of costs would not be affected by this. Licensed properties such as boats or vehicles, those would be exempt, and the usage is, of course, for public safety purposes, but what that means is we can free up dollars in the general fund to be going to serve other areas with more flexibility that are really diminished in their support. There are certainly plenty of services. The request list for budgets this year was immense, as it is every year, and it's always difficult to make those decisions on who gets money and who doesn't. There are jobs that need to be hired, vacancies that need to be filled, and offices that need to grow. This will help make that happen.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Atwood?
Yes, ma'am. So, when the safety sales tax came out, I knew that the reason why we needed to have that because we weren't having cash bail come in anymore. Unfortunately, the criminals that were exhausting the system, we no longer can charge them for that. So that left the citizens to pick up the tab on people that decide not to follow the rules, and it's very unfortunate. However, the more that I've learned about how delinquent the auditor's office is on auditing, I feel that I would need to see what services are being fiscally responsible that we're offering, and I'm not for increasing taxes. Everybody in this community is having hard times paying for things. And I know this doesn't cover groceries and medical devices and things like that. However, that's still the day-to-day finances that could stop our children from playing in a sport or stop our seniors from being able to go out to the movies or something like that. This is something that doesn't just encompass a certain district. This is something that encompasses the entire state.
Okay. And Mr. Atwood, again, how do you plan to work constructively with your future county board colleagues across party lines and possible divisions within your own party?
So, being a union member, I think, and a Republican, I think I bring a lot to the table on being able to work well with unions. The benefits that I have that for the last 24 years that I've raised my family on, I feel that our county employees deserve that also, as long as they're meeting the requirements also. I support union members. I like to listen. I have many friends that are Democrats, and that doesn't stop me from still being best friends with them from high school. I believe that we can all have mature discussions. We can disagree, but at the end of the day, we're working for the people. We're not working for a party. I don't answer to the Republican Party. I answer to the people. And if the people feel that I am no longer doing my job, then they have the right to vote me out or ask me to leave. The Republican Party doesn't have that option. So I implore every Democrat to understand that I have an open door policy, and if I do win and the next time you decide to run, I would love to work with you. I really would, or vice versa, because I think yourself and myself, we both have a special place for public service.
Okay, Mr. Sullard?
Could you repeat the question?
Yes. How do you plan to work constructively with your future county board colleagues across party lines and possible divisions within your own party?
Well, thankfully, I have a lot of experience doing that in my career as an attorney. A lot of negotiations, lots of finding common ground in the middle when you're trying to compromise with the other side, or even if you have principled aspects, you have to dig in your heels. Perhaps there's somewhere to give elsewhere. So being creative and trying to find common ground, I think, is important within the party and without the party. As far as bipartisan appeal, one topic that I think everybody can agree on is that we do all want public safety. I think that's what Mr. Atwood was alluding to earlier as well. And again, I have a lot of experience working directly with police departments over my career. With the Champaign Police Department here when I was chairing the Citizen Review Subcommittee, with the Sheriff's Office when I was in the State's Attorney's Office, and now at the university with UIPD. I continue to have a good relationship with public safety, and like I said, I think that's something everybody can agree on. I do want to make a quick note on the cash bail. He mentioned that the dollars aren't coming in, and that's why we're having a shortage. We're also not placing, we're not designating who can get out of jail based on how much money you make, so I think that's an improvement.
Okay. And again, Mr. Sullard, growing personnel costs for the county are a concern for future budgets. How do you hope to ensure the county can meet its staffing needs and obligations while also balancing the overall budget?
Yes, we do have to have a balanced budget, and that's why this public safety sales tax is on the ballot this November. Exactly the personnel reasons you're describing. There are shortages, there are vacancies, we can't fill it, and services are not going as smoothly as they should in some areas. That's how we fill it on a permanent basis, is to be able to bring in that extra cash flow in a way that secures the county's financial future in a responsible way. One-off things, cutting things here and there without much of a vision about it doesn't help, but being able to count on a secure line of revenue to come in would help fix that. And like I mentioned about the usages of it, it frees up a lot of funds, roughly $7 million in the general fund, to be used for some of those personnel matters that fall outside the public safety realm.
Okay, Mr. Atwood, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, ma'am. So I feel like a broken record. We have to audit these services that we provide. We all know that there's large amounts of governmental waste throughout the entire United States. We have to be able to have its check and balances. That's why we have an auditor. An auditor is not just somebody that writes paychecks. They need to get in there and be the internal auditor so we can fix them, so that when the external auditors come in, we have some kind of plan on how we're going to fix it. I do not want to put more strain on the community by taking more money out of their pockets. We're taxed to death. When a majority of your paycheck goes to paying taxes, what do you have left? Our seniors are on a fixed budget. I believe that we need to get more in line with Social Security and figure out a way to make sure that everybody, not just the working class, but the retired class, are able to make their ends meet.
Okay, and last question, you'll have your closing statements after this. Last question, Mr. Atwood, do you believe the county board should prioritize cutting costs, raising revenues, or perhaps both? And how would you propose going about this while balancing future budgets?
So same thing. We have to know the money that we're pouring in, your money that we're pouring into these services, are those dollars being spent wisely? We have to figure that out. And are we getting the results that we want from these services? If the services are just falling because it's somebody's little pet project, that's wrong. How do we know that's not happening? We need an auditor to do the job of auditing to ensure that our pennies are going to where we want them. Both balanced budget, making sure finances are there, and that can free up a lot of money by cutting costs where costs can be cut. That's how I feel.
Okay, Mr. Sullard?
It's always a matter of both. There's always some cuts you got to find where there's efficiencies to be made, and at the same time, you got to be able to make sure you're getting the revenue coming in that you need. This happens every year. Every year we have the budget cycle. There's days set aside for the county board to study this. Proposals are made. It takes 7+ months to get this all done every year. That's why there's days set aside, because it's hard. When we get the public defender's office, the state's attorney's office, who come in and make their case for why they need more budgeting, to more attorneys, more technical, whatever it may be, and you got to sit in that seat, hear everybody's needs that you feel, and you want to be able to pay for everybody's needs, but you can't. So you got to find ways where you don't fund different asks here or there, or you find new sources of revenue, like the public safety sales tax.
Okay. And the last question, starting with Mr. Atwood, do you believe the county board should prioritize cutting costs, raising revenue, or perhaps both? Wait, did I just ask you that?
I believe, yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now we're to closings. And closing, Mr. Atwood.
Yes, ma'am. So I feel that if you have any more questions on where I stand on being a county board member, I implore you to visit my Facebook page to get into contact with me and ask any question that you would like. I have two daughters, and I would love to make sure that the county that I choose to raise them in is a thriving county. I would also like to make sure that the seniors are taken care of in our community. They hold immense value, tell us things that have failed, and things that it's a different aspect of life, a different generation to teach us that we could definitely learn from. And we have to make sure we take care of them. Safety, the fact that we don't have enough lawyers to prosecute petty crimes, it all puts us all at risk. The fact that we're only going after major crimes because we don't have the employees for the caseload. And I just think that there's honestly a different way to raise the funds other than just going to the citizens, say, you foot this bill. When we get an auditor that will actually do the job, we can come in and we can look at it. a bipartisan look to say, hey, you know what, this was our expectation, but it just didn't come to fruition like we wanted it to. And we can all agree to cut so we can take care of our citizens in our districts and Champaign County as a whole. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to me. I appreciate every last one of you. And I look forward to the time when we can meet one-on-one and introduce ourselves to each other. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sullard?
Thanks again to everyone for listening. Thanks again to the League, News Gazette, NAACP, Champaign County for putting this together. I hope I've been able to share with you a way forward to fix the issues we face in Champaign County. My platform addresses many of the ways we can continue the good work of making Champaign County the safe, enjoyable, decent place to live and raise a family that we all know it is. We have to find ways to ensure jobs are created and stay in our community. We have an incredible local resource and workers educated at our university and colleges. We can do more to make sure businesses know it. We have to support workers' rights to organize and demand fair pay and working conditions and provide safe ways to seek help when those rights are threatened. I'm proud to say I've been endorsed by AFSCME Council 31, AFL-CIO of Champaign County, and the East Central Illinois Building and Construction Trades Council. We have to push for ways to reduce and eliminate gun violence, including intervening early, meeting people where they are, and removing weapons from dangerous hands. We have to level the playing field throughout the county by ensuring all corners have access to consistent internet and clean water. We have to invest in our county's future by investing in and encouraging clean, sustainable alternative energy. We have to make the hard choices to fund the services and employees needed for the consistent quality provision of services and prioritize needs while considering values. We have to stand for equality and equal rights, no matter one's race, sex, gender, or choice of love, especially when it comes to access to all options for health care and treatment. A lot of great progress has been made in recent years to correct years of poor decisions that made it harder for Champaign County to be the best it can be. Vote for the voice that knows the task at hand, shares your values, and has the skills and experience to get the job done. Please visit mattsullard.com to learn more about me and my priorities, and donate to our cause and get involved. Thank you.
Okay, thank both of you. Thanks again to the League of Women Voters of Champaign County and the NAACP for sponsoring this forum. Again, the recording can be found on votechampaign.org and on the League's YouTube channel. Links to get to both of these are on the League's website, lwvchampaigncounty.org. Very special thanks to timer Michelle Cooper, who has kept us on schedule. And one final reminder to you voters, it is not too late to register and to vote. You can register all the way up to Election Day and vote on that day. Information is available on the League website and the County Clerk's website about how to do this. Please vote.